So, you've decided you want to start a social media marketing agency and you're not sure what the next steps are, then you need to watch this video. Hi, I'm Jimmy Mitchell and I help people like yourself with ideas and ways to put more money in your back pocket. And in this video, I do a live coaching call with a member of the audience to help them from wanting to start an SMMA to actually doing it. Make sure you watch to the very end as I might just cover off exactly what's stopping you from taking massive action. Hey everyone, Jimmy here from My Online Guy with another episode of the Mentoring Monday segment where I basically just cruise through the chat and the comments that we get, and I jump on calls with the audience. And I've got Matt here who's been watching the channel, and he had some questions that he wanted to sort of throw in my direction just to help with his specific journey. So Matt, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and let us know what's up?
All right, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Matt. I've been in the SMMA in the space for about like a week or two. I got into it through Charlie Moore, or everyone starts with Iman Gadji, and then I found the Iman Gadji, not slander, but like the people who take it the other way. So I've been watching Charlie Morgan's content, a guy called Serge Guattari. I found Jimmy Mitchell's interview through Charlie Morgan. Been binging Jimmy's content, good content.
Awesome, thank you.
And just learn about the SMMA space.
Awesome. Okay, so what naturally attracted you? So what attracted you to SMMA specifically when you sort of discovered some of the bigger people in the space? You know, why SMMA over something like dropshipping or affiliate marketing or all the other ways to make money?
So yes, I attempted dropshipping. I never really put enough into it to get out of it. Like, it's an input output kind of thing. I didn't put enough into it. And I was just browsing. Everyone's looking for like the next online business, e-commerce, get rich quick scheme. I found Iman Gadji, and he was like, the best thing that you can do is start a social media marketing agency. And I've never heard of it before. And it intrigued me. And the more I listened, the more I realized it's very skill based. Like, you build up your own personal skills, and that's going to reflect on your results. And it's important to me that what I'm doing is something that my output is reflected by my input.
Yep.
But the more I put in, the more I'm going to get out. And that's really important to me when I'm working.
Yep, 100%. Especially when you start to, I think there's a getting out of that. So it's interesting with the agency space. You go from that thought process is like hour in versus dollar out. So you're like, if I put an hour into this, I want to be rewarded for the effort I put in. Then you get to a certain size, and then it becomes, how do I reduce the amount of work that I put in to increase the amount I'm getting out when you start hiring people and things like that. But yeah, it's SMMA, the agency space in general is a really good way of doing that. So talk about some of the things some of the actions you've taken so far in the last couple of weeks to push you further closer to getting off the ground and started.
So something I saw in Charlie's content is all of the different levels of resistance, all the different ways it manifests. And one of them is perfectionism, where I want everything to be perfect before I start. So pretty much all I've done over the last 2 weeks is just research. I haven't taken any real action, which I recognize is something that I need to be doing.
Yep.
But pretty much all I've done is just consume YouTube content, write down a list of books that I need to read. Haven't actually purchased any of them because I'm not taking action. But literally just gathering information. I had a Google Doc at one point that had like 40 pages of just notes I've taken across like 3, 4, 5 different channels. And then I organized those Google Notes, it's just more procrastination really. Yeah. But pretty much just note taking and like learning has been my approach.
Firstly, acknowledging that is a huge step because, you can get into this. A lot of people, and if you listen to Charlie for long enough, I'm good friends with Charlie, so I get probably a different dynamic. But if you listen to Charlie long enough, him and I both have the same philosophy. We just articulate it differently, and that is, just taking action. A lot of people use research and like studying and learning as a fearing starting. Fearing failing from the very start, because they don't necessarily have the, you have to acknowledge that you don't come in. You can learn everything there is to know about SMMA, but as soon as you get your first client, you can throw about 70% of it out the window.
Or like your first cold call, you can have the best script in the world, but you're still going to sound like a robot.
Yep. It's a good plan is will always change once it faces battle and faces the real world. So I think it's even acknowledging that is a really good starting point. So the first thing we need to unpack here is like, what actions are we going to, what series of actions are we going to take? And we need to put it in some kind of timeline constraint, because if there's no urgency about it, then you end up just spinning your wheels and you need to put constraints on it. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But you mentioned when we were talking initially that you're sort of also trying to settle on a niche and settle on an area to work in, and you mentioned sort of the funeral niche. So let's unpack that first, and then we'll wheel back to what we were talking about setting a plan of attack. So, because the niche is important. The niche, a lot of people don't realize this when they start. You can almost skip a lot of the steps if you really pick the right niche first, and then work out the intricacies as you go. So you mentioned the death niche. Let's unpack that a little bit. So why the death niche? And maybe just elaborate a little bit on what the death niche is, because I'm sure I'm butchering it right now.
No, so the death niche, what I was originally thinking was funeral homes. So the organization of funerals was the main thing, because that's something that's I've known to be really important, is high ticket. Yep. And I see solar panels, I see all these other things, but I've never heard of anyone doing the death niche.
Yep.
I'm aware that marketing, like I can't remember the last time I've seen an ad for a funeral home in my life, to be honest. So I'm aware that there's a gap in the marketing there. I know it's high ticket. My best mate, his mum works at a funeral home, and like we both got hired today doing casual work. Like today was our first day. Oh, and awesome. So that's an avenue into learning about the industry, where it's like I don't have to. I still would go around to other places, like what are your issues? How do we solve them? But it's easy when it's my co-workers and people that I can be friends with. I can be like, okay, I want like all these detailed things about what's the issue. So I've got an avenue in. I recognize that it's high ticket. It's very emotional, like talking to advertisements. So you need like a high level of emotional intelligence, I guess.
Yep.
Which is not everyone can do that. And so that's probably why it's so unsaturated. And I think these are all things that I can adapt to, or skill sets I might already have, or just avenues in. And it all just culminates in like this grand idea in my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I actually think okay, so like I can talk to the specifics of this space, but I'm going to talk philosophically for a sec about something that anyone that's thinking of getting into the SMMA space really needs to think about, right? And I talk about my experience a lot because I can just speak to it. So I think part of the reason I had this success where a lot of people have failed in this space, because like, quite frankly, for every agency that does 7 figures, there's probably 10,000 that don't do any.
For
right?
Sure.
So I used to have a lot of imposter syndrome around that, and going like, why did we succeed and fail? But if I actually unpack how we got to this point, and you've seen that in the videos, there's a clear step process how I got to that. But I think the reason we've been able to succeed where others have failed is because the whole space is like set in tiers, right? You have like like it's like gaming, you got S tier, A tier, B tier, like if League of Legends or whatever, right? So you got your S tier, and then you got your A, B, C. Everyone in the space wants to target. They don't necessarily like. You can decide what those tiers are, but let's say, for instance, right, 95% of the industry wants to tackle the highest value with the lowest amount of work, because it's just that, and for some reason this space naturally attracts people that are trying to extract the most money out of people. you know, and want to create something with that doesn't require any work. It just, the TikTok especially is like made it seem like that's what agencies run like.
Yeah.
So with us, for instance, right, you know, solar, hot, you know, plumbing, hot, you know, there's most agencies specialize around that kind of stuff because it's low hanging, but actually by targeting like engineering companies and stuff that's a little bit more complex, it created this whole bunch of clear skies because it's that much harder to do. It eliminates a lot of the competition. And I feel like this space is a similar thing where it's like, you know, you've got to be conscious that there might be a reason why no one's advertising in it. And that's one thing. It could just be that it's not profitable. But I also, it could well be that people go, well, I'm getting into this space. If I have to pick between solar or e-com or funeral homes where there's no information available, how to set up the ads, how to do the Google ads, how to do the actual marketing for it. Whereas I can buy a solar panel course and get all the templates and everything done for you and just whack them up the net. You know, which path are most people going to take? They're going to take the easiest path, right? But the problem with everyone going in the same direction is that everyone's doing the same stuff, and that's how you create saturation. It's like when there's 15 people doing the same ads for the same, you know, that look identical and work the same way. It doesn't teach you how to think laterally about this stuff and go, where's the genuine value you provide? And, you know, with us, right, the genuine value that we provide is the fact that at this point, it doesn't matter what niche I work in. I like know how to do marketing properly. So like I could work for a funeral home right now and go like, well, of all the people that do this, I can take what I know works and I can apply it to that industry.
Yeah, it's all about like the skills.
Yeah, as opposed to learning it like superficially and rote learning it and then going, oh, actually it's not working. I don't know what to do from this point. So yeah, the funeral niche I have a bit of experience with that, and it's an interesting one because there's a time constraint on it. And the fact that like if someone dies, unfortunately, there's like a finite window that they have to, you know, be buried for being pragmatic. And also it's sort of like something that people don't want to think about
until it happens.
That process. Yeah, till it happens, right? Unless they've like pre-planned it. No one's thinking about, okay, if grandma dies suddenly, what funeral home are we going to use for them? So it limits a lot of what you can do marketing-wise, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't work. It just needs to be done differently. But let's say, for instance, let's say you're going to go into the funeral home niche, right? And that's the path you're going to go down. Like in the funeral niche, because I think you're right. I think the biggest mistake you can make in starting any like agency, whether it's SMMA or SEO agency or whatever, is picking a niche that you're not familiar with. And I can understand there's a lot of people out there that don't have an understanding of a niche, but you're going about it exactly the right way, exactly the way I would do it. It's like, okay, well, if I don't know anything about any niche right now, well, I can get experience in this niche by having a casual job there and learn a bit of the insights and the ins and outs, which makes me more competitively, makes me more competitive in the market, because when I talk to another funeral home, I can say, well, you know, you can talk their language, you can speak and it's always been my advantage, right? Is I know a lot about hydraulics, I know a lot about the industrial space. So when I go and talk to a company, I can speak their language. And then if some other company comes in and they're not speaking the language, who's got the competitive edge? So I think that's the best place to start. It may not be the niche you end up like doing like long term. You might go, okay, well, funeral homes aren't the place to be. I've got one client or something like that and it's not profitable. But the things you learn by doing it with them, you can then pivot those skill sets and go, okay, well, actually, I'm going to pivot into the solar niche with what I learned from doing this and be more competitive. So I think it's a good point. There's a lot of people out there that won't start because they don't know, they don't put a flag in the ground. Even if it's not necessarily the best flag in the ground, they just don't put one in the ground. Mm. You know, because funeral, you may discover through your diligence and doing it that actually there's a reason why no one runs ads, right? But that shouldn't be the reason to stop you from starting. Because if you go into it with the right mindset that, okay, I'm just going to learn everything I can about marketing and the vehicle I'm going to use is the funeral niche to learn that, then if you do have to pivot to e-com or, you know, industrial or something else, you can take all that knowledge with you and just put your flag in a different spot. But the flag is bigger, the flag is wider, and you're more competitive. Whereas right now you're not competitive at all because you haven't started. So wheels back to that, right? So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of going from someone that's decided that they want to get into this space versus actually starting and putting your flag in the ground. So you mentioned that you've got a bit of underpinning knowledge now just from like, so where have you been putting your energy and focus on the learning, on the consuming of content? Obviously Charlie's pretty sales centric and sales focused. Is that been where you've been putting your energy?
So wheeling really quick all the way back to what you said about the low hanging fruit. Another thing from Charlie is the hardest niche is the easiest niche, and the easiest niche is the hardest niche.
Yes.
Which is such a good quote to think about when like thinking about your niches. Like if you drop a fish in a pond and there's no other fish in the pond, could be there's no food in there, or that fish could end up dominating the space. Like it can go both ways.
100%. That's a really good point. That is a really good point because it's better to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond than it is to be a tiny fish in a massive pond.
Exactly.
Especially in this space, it's you know, why I don't understand. Like I'm part of Charlie's course clearly, and like I said, I get to see a little bit of insights that maybe others don't get to see. And so many people come into that wanting to do e-commerce, even though Charlie has said time and time again that e-commerce is not the best place to start. Everyone just goes, oh, e-commerce, there's heaps of businesses, they pay, you know, they got big retainers, but they're only paying those big retainers to the people that have credentials.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, don't continue. It was just an interesting thought that came up as you were talking.
Yeah, that is a good point. I was probably going to originally start with e-commerce, like literally every other person. Like you hear about it from emails, like e-commerce social media marketing agency or TikTok. I was like, oh, cool, it's free money, but obviously not. So yeah, with the focus of my learning, it's been about mostly just learning the base skills. So like obviously I've gone through like dozens on dozens of Charlie's videos, and like the videos where he talks about a script, like I've got notes on the script. Awesome. But yeah, a lot of it is just learning the skills, like the 25 psychological biases from Charlie Munger's book.
Yep.
Just like learning how to sell something. Like I saw a video, I don't know his name, his first name was Joe. He's got a pretty small subscriber count, and he talks about don't start a business, learn a skill. That's what you should do. And it couldn't be more right? Like if I learn the skills, if I learn how to sell, I can go anywhere and sell something. Whereas if I spent all my time researching what is the exact ROI on a funeral home, and I spent like 2 hours researching that, I could have spent 2 hours reading a book on sales.
100%. Right? Dude, that is the single best mindset I've heard from someone that hasn't started yet, because you generally learn that when you start. Most people get like 6 months into their SMMA journey and then go, actually, I probably should have put more focus on sales and not. So we see it a lot in SEO, right? So I've been doing SEO for almost a decade now, and you always see it in this space. Like people that are trying to learn SEO, they're like, oh, I need to learn about JavaScript rendering, and I need to learn this, and they're using that as an excuse not to start because they're like, I don't know how to do it. Actually, there's a difference between theoretical SEO, because there's a whole bunch of stuff you should be doing, and practical SEO, which is like what works now, what people are willing to pay for. And there's a big disconnect between, you know, what's over here. So like with Facebook ads, right? There's a big disconnect between what the theoretical single best ad is with all the bells and whistles versus what a funeral home will pay for if you present them a proposal.
Yeah.
Because to do it properly and to do it all this and to do that and to spend the time and energy to learn that stuff, you know, that might be like $10,000 a month. But for them to just go, okay, well, this is what they need to do to succeed. So as far as learning, I need to learn how to set one up. I need to learn how to write copy. I need to learn how to pick an image. You know, optimizing for the 0.001% that requires 3 hours of learning is not a good use of time if the best use of time is learning how to get someone to take money out of their pocket and put it into yours. And it's the single biggest thing that people shy away from, but it's the single biggest skill. If you talk to anyone that's got a big agency, the best thing that they're at, the single best skill they have is their ability to sell what they do.
Yeah, like
everything else.
If you try to build a pyramid from the top of the pyramid, it's just not going to work. Like you have to start at the bottom and then work your way up.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, they fill the bottom of the pyramid with the nuts and bolts of how to do stuff, as opposed to going, what creates a solid foundation for an agency? Well, someone needs to sell what you do and market what you do. That needs to be the base of the pyramid in the agency space, especially with how many charlatans and stuff there is out there. You know, I wouldn't be worrying too much about how I'm going to deliver, because there's a lot of people that can help with delivery. Like, there's a lot of Facebook ads, Google ads courses, social media marketing courses out there, but they're only useful, and you only get a return on those courses and those people in that time if you have clients. That's what people don't understand about this space, is like, it's all good and well to be, you know, I see it at conferences all the time. They're like, oh, I know this. It's like, oh, that's all good and well. You know, do you have any clients to use it on? Okay, yeah, you can know all about every minute detail about Facebook ads, and I may be doing it wrong, but I have clients and you don't. So what's more important? Like, what actually puts a return on an investment? It's like,
exactly.
Do I get more clients, or do I worry about the 1%ers that no one cares about? So I think you're right. I think the best your job, you know, when you start an agency, it needs to be like Terminator. You just land in the SMMA space, and your only job is to just run around getting clients. Nothing, anything else above and beyond that is a waste of time until you have at least one. You can start to work on the processes and everything like that once you've got a client, because it's a lot easier to build your processes out and know what works and what doesn't when you've got someone to actually use it on. If you don't have anyone to use it on, it's all theoretical. So, you know, our job, your job, is to only focus on the stuff that will get a client. So outreach, you know, the script writing, like you're saying, but ultimately that theoretical stuff needs to be turned into practice, and like, okay, what actions are we taking that gets us closer to having the first client? Because at the moment it's all theoretical, but you know, where does the rubber meet the road, where we're actually out there getting them? So have we taken much action in regards to actually acquiring clients?
So literally none at all yet, and I'm sure that this is just the resistance in my brain talking, like the perfectionism, but there is a point where if on day one of SMMA I start reaching out to clients, like, it's pointless, because I do need to have a base level of knowledge, and the thing that I don't know is, when do I know enough to begin outreach? And you can begin outreach day one, but I don't know how to, I feel like I do need to know X amount before I begin outreach, and I just don't know if I'm at that stage yet.
See, that's the thought process is right. I think this has just been my experience with it. It's the difference between, are you quite technical in nature? As in like do you do much drawing or anything like that, or is it more?
No, I was never artsy. I had the worst handwriting. I never got my pen license. Like,
yep. So we can assume that you're quite technical in nature, right? And you like to know how the nuts and bolts and things work, right? So this is a big thing about, and I see this a lot, and a lot of people they explain it. They explain the concept of this, but they don't necessarily. People just don't seem to listen for some reason, right? But it's features versus benefits. So if you're going out in the market and you're selling something, well, I would challenge you on this. Why do you need to know the exact specifics on how you're going to get the result when the conversation should be about the benefits? So like, if you're coming to me and saying, Jimmy, I can get you 50 inquiries tomorrow for your funeral home, as a business owner, I don't give two shits about how you do that, honestly, if you can get the results. Now, what you need to make sure you do is that you have enough maybe underpinning knowledge to at least have some idea about how you would execute on that. Doesn't have to be the specifics, because what you realize is once the clock starts ticking on a client, you're going to learn 10 times more anyway, because you're going to have some guidance to learning. I don't know if you watched that video on the best way to learn with this kind of thing, but the actual best way to learn is to have a client go, okay, well, I need to do this now. So it goes from like learning how to sell to like, okay, well, I told him I'm going to get 50 leads a month. I better work out how I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And then your concentration of learning on that specific topic will change a lot, because you'll be like, I have a tangible reason to do it now, as opposed to just collecting floating bits of information that are floating around the net that don't connect in any real way. So I explained this in another video. The way I learned SEO when I first started was I got the tools that people use. So like an Ahrefs, for instance, and I just went through the tool and I went, if it's on the tool it's there for a reason. And I just started learning about the things and then just started connecting them all together. It's hard to do that if you have no real reason to do that, because you won't know what you need to learn. Whereas if you go, okay, well, I need 50, I told this guy I'm going to get 50 leads a month. I'm charging him $2,000 a month. Okay, well, I need to spend the first day or the first 2 days working out how I'm going to do it. Okay, well, then you become like Terminator again. I'm on a mission now. My goal has shifted from acquiring clients. My goal now is to kill John Connor. It's to go and actually find out how I'm going to do this. Go on Reddit groups, go on this, go find the information you need to like start to develop that, because it gives you a reason. It's just shifting the priority information. So I agree, you do need a level of cursory knowledge of how social media works and social media marketing works, like how Facebook ad works, how a Google ad works, how they kind of tie together. But the actual specific nuts and bolts of how you're going to do it are a lot less important than getting a client that's willing to pay you for the service. And I reckon you can just about get away. Well, that's how I do it. I'll be doing, $5,000 a month retainers for SEO, and we don't talk about SEO at all, because it's just the vehicle that I do to get an outcome. So when I'm talking to a client about, so let's use social media. We do Facebook and Google ads here. I'll go to the client and go, look, I recommend we do Google ads. And the reason for that is you mentioned that you're wanting 50 leads a month. Now, the best way to get 50 leads a month is Google ads, in my opinion. Now, these are some of the pros and cons of doing it, but ultimately we need to get to this and it's going to cost this. That conversation, there's not really much about the nuts and bolts, because they don't care. If they wanted to learn about Google ads, they would be doing it themselves. Or if they wanted to learn about social media marketing, they would do it themselves. And it's something that I see a lot of, and a lot of it comes from people wanting to, for lack of a better term, mentally masturbate. They want to sound smart in front of someone, and sound like they have knowledge, when really, generally the person on the other side, they wouldn't be taking the call if they didn't think you had the knowledge, because they're giving time to do that. So you copy, my suggestion to you is not concern yourself as much about knowing the ins and outs of how Facebook ads works. Just know fundamentally how it works, but not how to produce an ad. Let's say, for instance, you don't even really need to know that, because you're never going to get asked it. But you need to know okay, where do Facebook ads work? Where do they don't work? Where do Google ads work? Where do they not work? Where do TikTok ads work? Where do they not work? And then you start to align that with how you have the conversations. But you see it a lot where I put it this way: when I get into sales calls and I know the other person started talking about SEO and how many links a month they're building and stuff like that, I know I'm going to get the client. Because if I go in there and go, look, you're hiring me for a reason, it's because I know how to do it. You need 10 leads a month. I think SEO can do that. If I don't, and this is why I have integrity in the market, because if I don't think it can do it, I say that as well, because I have an underpinning knowledge of what it can and can't do. So you see people mess up all the time, especially, newer people. They'll promise things that they don't necessarily know they can deliver on, or they say, oh yeah, Facebook ads will do that, when actually what they need is Facebook ads will never achieve for them. So I would say, as far as learning what to learn to be able to go to market, learn what these channels can and can't do, and who the right audience is for them. So funeral home, for example, right? If I was going to do the social media marketing for a funeral home, I probably would put a lot of emphasis on Google ads, because a lot of those people are going to be transactional. They're going to be typing in funeral homes because they don't generally know someone in their network that would know a good recommend. That, well, firstly, they're probably not going to go into the market, into Facebook groups and go, oh, can anyone recommend a good funeral home? Because it's quite a personal thing and quite a, they don't want to spread the word that their partner's died. So they're just going to do quiet searching in the background, and then I would then use retargeting to retarget them on platforms and target them super aggressively, like on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. Once they land on my website, I would then retarget them with Facebook ads. But that's a big difference between running Facebook ads and retargeting with it.
Yeah, like Facebook seemed like a good place as like a starting point, because the demographic, the age group of people on Facebook is like the older kind of generations, and like say someone's grandma loses her husband, she's probably gonna talk to her daughter and be like, do you know any funeral homes? And that mum would probably have been on Facebook, so that they might see it there. And that was my thought process there. But going back real quick on what you said about delivering false promises, that's again could be another form of resistance, but that's part of the reason I haven't begun outreach, is because I don't want to deliver a false promise. Like, if I don't know that I can do something, I don't want to claim that I can. And it comes back to the perfectionism. Like, I want to be able to 100% say with full confidence, I can do this for you because I've got all the elements wrapped in this nice little ribbon. And then go to someone and be like, I will get this done for you. I can do this.
So how I overcame that at the start, because that's a real thing. I think it's a combination of like, fear of starting. I think that comes to the fear of starting a little bit, but like, I think, again, it's a bit of a myth in the space that you have to pretend like you know it all to get someone to deal with you. If the first 3 SEO clients I ever got, because I started as an SEO agency and then I've expanded out into different services, and I would argue that SEO is harder to sell than SMMA. But the first 3 SEO clients I got, and I probably should do a video on this because I've got the emails. I made them a video and I had a conversation with them and said, look, I know what I'm doing, but I can't show you testimonials. I know I can get this, and I will work harder than anyone else to make sure that we get results. But I'll be honest, like if I can't get the results, all I can offer you is that I'll be honest about it, and we'll work together to work out a solution. See, I'm tearing up thinking about it, because it's like that people don't realize that all selling is passing conviction on from one person to another person. So when I say that, I have so much conviction when I say that, it's creating an emotional reaction in myself. So you imagine a business owner that's been ripped off by someone else, and all they want is to work with someone that's going to communicate with them. They don't care if, like, the numbers are all cursory anyway. Like, most people the business is making up their numbers on what they need, and then most agencies actually don't know the number, like whether they're going to get the results or not. So if you just peel back the numbers side of it and said, like, you just want to work with someone, like, position yourself, it's like, look, why you want to work with me over every other SMA is because I give a shit. I actually care whether you get results or not. Now, I admit I am new to this, but I'm not new to I wouldn't say I'm new, but I would go, look, I don't have a huge portfolio of clients to show you, but what I can say to you is that I'm going to work exceptionally harder than anyone else to make sure we get the results. And if I don't feel like we're going to get results, or I'm not seeing it, I'm willing to, we'll work together through this, right? It eliminates all of those concerns. And then it starts the relationship on the right way too, because the right person that wants that. So you might talk to someone, they're like, no, thank you, we need someone with results. Well, really, do you want to work with someone that sets that expectation so high when you don't know in yourself where they're going to get it to? Because it will just create a huge amount of stress. But there'll be clients out there that are like, and it might be for lower retainers. That's the other thing at the start. I think there's this, it pisses me off in the space actually, this is a little bit of rant, but I charge $5,000 a month for SEO because I can. And the reason I can is because I know for a fact I'm going to get results. I don't take on clients I can't. But B, I've got credentials. Like I've worked with so many people now that I can pass on that conviction a lot better than someone that's maybe just getting into SEO. But all these marketers tell you, charge what it's worth, charge what it's worth. Actually, you have to charge for the amount of value you provide. And if that amount of value you provide is like you should give a discount for the amount of risk someone's taking. And I'm not talking about like calling it a discount, but you should like charge appropriately to the amount of risk that they're taking on relative to the amount of value you provide. Because
do you start with because Charlie talks about risk reversal. Do you start with commission based like the first 2 months and then move into retainers?
I've never needed to.
Yeah.
Like even my scripts and my offers, I don't have any guarantees because I don't need to. I've got the luxury that I don't necessarily need to because I've got credentials like in the space, so I can go. You know, it'd be. Do you follow the AFL?
I know all the teams.
Yeah, I'd be like Buddy Franklin, all right? Like I could go, you know, after playing footy for so long and kicking so many goals, I could just walk into any footy club and they'll pay me because it's like,
Buddy.
Yeah. So it's the same sort of thing. It's like, you know, that it's you don't the risk mitigation side of it comes into play when you don't have. So okay, I can talk exactly. I remember now. So it was a while ago, but the first couple of clients I had, I basically said to them that if I don't get results for you within 6 months, this is SEO, by the way, I will just work for free until I get results. Because the thing with SEO is that like you front load a huge amount of the work anyway. So like I wasn't actually doing that much, and I never had them call me out on it. But I suppose I did offer a risk reversal kind of guarantee to the first clients. I don't do it anymore because I don't need to. They don't ask me, but. Yeah, the first 3 or 4 clients I had, I definitely offered them that. And, you know, I think in the SMMA space, it's more important because there's so many people hitting the market. For every SEO agency or people that do SEO, there's probably 3,000 that do SMMA. So it's a little bit more like that's like par for the course. But also, if you get into the course itself, one of the things, you know, we talk about in the course is like, you know, you also want to make sure that they still pay you for the work that you do. You're just working on commission on the. So basically, you know, we don't, if you don't get 50 leads in your first 9 days, we don't get paid. That's kind of how these guarantees work, right? But the asterisk is you still get the client to pay for the $1,000 or $2,000 for you to set it up. They just don't pay you per lead after that sort of thing, you know, until you get to that 90 point or whatever.
So what is that money actually for? Does that pay for ads? Because I heard about the upfront fee for overheads, but I don't actually know what the overheads are.
Well, the idea is, and I had this argument with someone on TikTok the other day because I called someone out for saying that SMMA has 100% profit margin. And I was like, if you're running a business with 100% profit margin, then you're doing something. You're not delivering anything because it's impossible to have that. You know, there's fees involved with running this stuff. So what most SMMA agencies will do is they will pay for the ads for the client out of that. So they'll get like $2,000 of ad spend it's built into it to get results. Yeah. I don't generally operate like that. I get the client to pay for their own ad spend. But like it's subtle little things, man. Like, you know, a lot like service delivery. It's fine when you are just have 1 or 2 or 3 clients. You can do all that yourself. But as soon as you start getting more than like 4 or 5 clients, you start needing help. And if you don't get into the habit of building in margin from the very start, then you'll get caught out with your pants down when you do start needing help, and you've never built any margin into what you do. You've just gone, I want to make $6 an hour, so it's going to take me 10 hours. I'm going to charge $600. That's the wrong way to think of it. If you don't treat these things as a business from the very start, when you do have to, through no choice of your own, when you start paying tax and things like that, you'll start realizing that $60 an hour is not enough to run actual business, because your $60 an hour, yeah, that's what you want to get paid, but there's the cost of, you know, hiring someone to help with the ads potentially. There's the cost, just the miscellaneous cost of the reporting tools. There's G Suite. There's all these overheads that people don't appreciate that come into running a business. And doesn't matter if it's an SMMA or any business, there's operating expenses. So, from day one, I was always working off $120 an hour because it's like, yeah, I need to make $30 an hour. But if I charge $120 an hour, that affords me the luxury of, like, if I can't fulfill, there's enough of a war chest there to hire someone that can. So you may get into, so it mitigates a lot of the risk for you because you can get into a campaign and go, I've charged a $2,000 setup fee. Oh, I'm way over my head. Oh, Jimmy, can you give me a hand to set it up? Sacrifice that $2,000 to hire a professional to help you set it up, chalk it up to a bit of learning and a bit of training, because you would get them to show him how you do it as well. But if you didn't take that, then how would you possibly do that? You get into a position where you're like, actually, I can't fulfill because I don't know. I'm in over my head, but then I can't afford to pay anyone to help.
Yeah.
So a lot of that setup fee is where the margin is, because the average lifetime value of an SMMA customer is a lot less than, say, SEO, because there's nothing actually, depending on if you do it per lead, but like, let's say for instance you're doing a monthly retainer to keep their campaign running and set up. They may do that for 3 months and then drop you because they kind of know that it's already set up and working. So you want to front load some of the costs to mitigate getting dropped in like 6 months. So you're paid for your time. That way, if they decide, oh, I'm actually not going to go ahead with you, you haven't like lost anything setting it up and developing. You've taken some of that value off the table from the start.
There's something I like about the funeral, or like in my head that I thought was good about the funeral niche is because Charlie said retention is harder than acquisition. But because It's not like with the funeral niche, like you got the same customers every month. Like you die once, right?
Yes.
So if you're getting every month there's new customers, they're coming from somewhere, I feel like retention would be easier in that market because there's always a need for new customers. The recurring customers isn't really a thing.
Yep. And this is the difference between being a service provider and a strategic partner too. Like at the start, like if you're just starting up, it's about paying bills. And this is another big myth too with this space is like the jobs that I did when the gigs that I took on when I first started the agency are a lot different to what I do now because you need to pay bills and then you can worry about strategic planning and providing more value and all that shit, right? Like at the time, when we first started doing websites, I was doing $2,000 websites, $1,000 websites, and we were building websites that are probably worth $6-7 grand because it was like, actually, it was just about getting bills paid.
Yeah.
Once we established a bit of a portfolio, we were able to charge more. But where I was getting with that is the value, the way you get to the point where you can charge exorbitant amounts for what you do, and like get to that point where it's like, actually, I'm running a proper agency, not just a glorified freelancer, is getting to the point where you're not just a resource for a business, you're an actual genuine strategic partner. And the way you do that is that thought process, right? So, again, this is notwithstanding paying bills. Let's say you're like 2 or 3 clients in and you're paying bills and you're trying to work out how to go from like $5,000-$10,000 a month to 40, right? Because it's a whole different dynamic. The difference, so you were saying about them acquiring leads and you provide the leads to them. Well, the difference between being a service provider in that case is like, okay, well, we're getting them leads every month. They get those leads, they use them. The difference between being a strategic partner is someone that goes, okay, well, talking to the business and helping them like retain those or convert them better or reactivate them or helping them build their own channels to acquire customers. The lifetime value is a lot higher and it just gets you to that next step. But I'm sidetracking a little bit because it's not important right now. The important thing is like actually getting a client or two because it's a luxury that you only get when you've got a stable income and you can go, actually, I can allocate a bit of time and resources and money to like developing what makes us unique in the market.
Yeah.
Because you know, you can't just lean on, because everyone says it, oh, you know, we do good work or we guarantee results. Everyone does that. What is the actual point of difference that will get you from doing 10, 20 grand a month to $1 million a year, or like 100K a month, is the fact that, like with me, it's like, well, actually our point of difference is that, you know, we're ASOGs, we work with specific clients, we provide this specific value that no one else provides. We're not just getting you leads, we are strategic partners. Like, we'll help you develop strategies, we'll help you do this, or you are like the funeral niche guy, you are the funeral SMMA guy, and you become, your competitive advantage is the fact that you're just so well known in the space that any funeral home, you're the first person they use.
And that's the dream, right? It's like, you want to be the guy.
Yeah. And that's where the content comes into it as well. I think providing that value, once you do get clients, that's how you become that like funeral home guy. I've got a mate he was a general agency. Now he just works with dentists, and he started off like me doing, you know, all different kinds of niches, and then he went, I'm just going to work with dentists. And now he's got dentists knocking down his door to work with him, because he's just known as he's the guy you go, you know, at dental conferences and stuff. He's the guy that gets up on stage and tells all these dentists how to do their marketing now, because that focus in one area is a big competitive advantage. Because if you and I say coming up together in a proposal, and I'm like, oh, you know, I know a lot about marketing stuff, and like you're like, well, I've worked with 10 funeral homes now, I know exactly what you need. Who are they going to pick?
Yeah, it's like the little niche knows, like in the conversation, like you slip in key terms, and the people, they're like, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. This is a no-brainer. Yep.
And at the start, you know, you just got to take money. You know, like you may not just be able to have the luxury of only working with funeral homes. You may have to just piece. You know, if your cousin's dad comes to you with a roofing company and wants you to work with him, well, at the start you kind of have no choice. You got to make money. But once you start, as long as you have some kind of plan in your head to go, this is the direction we're going, and not get pulled to the side because it's like, oh, there's more money over here, I'm just going to switch niches. Charlie talks about this a lot too, about just sticking to a niche and staying with it, not flip-flopping because there's a shiny object over here that's perceived to be better.
Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, it's a real thing, man. Like, you know, the amount of people out there that like hop from like, oh, I'm going to start a digital marketing agency, oh, I'm going to start an SMMA agency now, oh, I'm going to only work with solar panel companies because there's more money in it. It's like, actually, if you just stuck to one of them and you probably make as much by then, say, going to a market that's new. Like, I see this a lot with TikTok, right? There's a lot of marketing agencies that have gone, oh, we're now a TikTok agency, because it's like they feel like it's where the money is. But actually, if you just stuck to your lane, you know, like you probably make more than that. Everyone and his man and his dog now being a TikTok agency.
Yeah, and I'm a big shiny object syndrome guy. Like, I can recognize that. I'm sure you've heard of like Hustlers University. Like, there's all these different.
Yeah, we take. Yep.
Yeah, there's all of these different things, and I've probably sunk 10 hours into every single course, and I'm not even the jack of all trades. Like, I'm the jack of all trades. I know nothing about any of them. I've just given them like little bits of time, and I just keep flip-flopping like, oh, this looks cool, this looks cool, this looks cool. But I get what you said about like if my cousin's dad comes to me about roof tiling, that's the importance of learning the base skills. Like, I can know everything about the funeral home, but I'm not going to be able to help him market because I don't know shit. I just know how to do this one thing. And that's the importance of knowing the base. Like, Eman said that you can flip-flop niches for the first year and find your groove. But you can only do that if you actually know how to sell something. And that's comes back to the importance of learn the skills, then learn the extras.
Dude, it's I battle with this because I feel like an imposter sometimes because I'm sitting here and it's all rosy and stuff. But like, if I actually unpack how I went about it, I just went, I just want to be better than everyone else at it. I don't not from a bragging perspective, but I want to have a fundamental, say SEO, okay, I learned Google Ads. I only learned Google Ads like 3 years ago. The way I learned Google Ads is by learning how it fundamentally works. And I was like immediately better than like 95% of the people that do it.
Yeah.
So when I first did the first couple, I was shitting myself because I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to get results. But as I started getting results, I was like, actually, you know, I know why I'm getting results. So it doesn't matter if it's a roofer or a mechanic and stuff like that. I know why it worked. And so like now I can go into any niche. Like, so Cam, my ops manager, and myself, we go the other day, we're like, oh, do we take this client on as a locksmith? We've never done it before. And it's like, we'll be right. So we did it, set it up. He's getting 10 times better results than what he got before because we were just doing the foundations and the fundamentals better. And then all the little 1%ers that maybe you niching down into the locksmith space would help with would make a difference. But like, you know, getting 98% of or 95% of the way there with fundamentals is a lot more important to a business than getting the 5% on top. So it's a big problem with the space, man. Like there's a lot of people that do SMMA courses or marketing courses and then just try and copy and paste what they've learned as opposed to going, how do I fundamentally understand how this works? And I've said that with Charlie's interviews, why I like Charlie's course so much. It was because it was like, okay, he's got a novel way of doing outreach, but instead of going, use this script, use this for it to work, he goes, well, actually use some initiative, learn why it works, and then modify it to make it work for you. And that's why it works so well for me, because that's exactly what I did, is I just learned foundationally why it's so effective, and then went, okay, well, I know how it works now. I'm going to just do it and then just iterate on it as I go.
And that's exactly what attracted me to your channel. Like, it's just laziness, but like, I'll be listening to a YouTube. I know you're not supposed to multitask, but like, I'll be playing like a somewhat AFK game on my computer, and I was listening to your interview with Charlie, and I heard you talk about, he asked you about like how you learn things, and you're like, I always learn like the 95%, the base. I always learn that first. And I closed my game. I was like, this guy actually knows what the fuck he's talking about. Like, I'm actually gonna listen. And yeah, that's what brought me to your channel. Is like, it's so common sense, but it's nowhere. Like, no one learns the base skills anymore. Like, I can't remember the last time I've read a book until I started paying attention. And books are how you learn. Like, no one around me reads books. It's just non-existent. No one cares about the base anymore. It's just get rich quick, and that's just what the world is now.
Yep, and the beauty about that, it's like, it's actually the single best time to do this because of that. If there's a whole bunch of people that, like, aren't doing things properly, I talk about this when I went from agriculture into the marketing space. So in agriculture, everyone that sells is really good at selling because you're talking about $1 million machines. You're talking about, you only get like you're selling a harvester, you only get 20 shots a year because there's only 20 farmers a year that will buy one. So if you don't close that sale, you know, that's 5% of like the total commission you're ever going to make that year. But when you do close it, you make 8-10 grand. So it's worth learning. It's worth being better at sales than everyone else. So like I came out of this industry where you've got to know the foundations and the fundamentals of why it all works for it to be able to sell at that level. Come into this space, and there's a whole bunch of people that are like, oh, you know, we can do SEO for you. We're going to build this many links. And as soon as one of the potential clients goes, oh, why are we doing that? They go, oh, I don't actually know why we build 2 links a month. Whereas I got into conversations because I had a fundamental understanding of Google Ads, and they're like, so I'm saying, okay, well, look, we're going to do this. We're going to create these landing pages. They're like, oh, why do we need to create landing pages? And I'm like, instantly like, well, the reason we need landing pages is because your conversion rate's higher when you send the traffic from an ad that is the same as the landing page. Next question. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, okay, we're going to set all this up. And then if someone asks, they actually have no idea why they're doing it. Whereas if the foundation is there and the base is there, then you can learn all the specific. It's like doctors, right? If you want to become a surgeon, you learn how the human body works before you even touch a scalpel, because it's more important to understand the mechanics of the human body and what's involved with the human body than actually learning how to cut it. Then once you learn that, then you get taught how to actually do the procedures and do the surgery. So the learning about the human body is like the learning the sales side. The cutting of the body is like the service delivery. And then let's say you want to become a like you want to operate on brains, you then specialize in a very specific area in a very specific part. But there's no neurosurgeons that have never learned how to do general surgery. It's like you learn the basics first, and then you go, okay, well, I want to operate on brains, and that's all I'm going to do. You don't go, I'm going to learn about brains and learn how to be a neurosurgeon, but not learn how to amputate a leg. Because it's like those fundamental skills about like how blood works and how, the blood's going to come out of your leg, it applies to the brain or the leg.
Yeah.
So it's the same as this. It's like if you don't learn why click-through rate's important and how it affects, say, a Google Ads campaign, then there's no use learning about retargeting and remarketing, because it all ties back to that, or it all ties back to the copy, or it all ties back to psychology. Everything ties back to the fundamentals in some way, and everyone gets caught up in the shiny. It's not like TikTok, right? Very, very good example. I reckon I've taken on a couple of TikTok clients now, and we're building them out. Because I have a fundamental understanding of how Instagram and Facebook ads work, I was able literally to pick up TikTok and go, well, okay, we're going to have to adjust. It's like specializing. We're going to have to adjust the way we do the videos themselves, because it won't work. But I have a fundamental understanding of the platform, and I have a fundamental understanding of how it works. So it doesn't necessarily matter how we go about it, because I know what needs to happen, and then it's just working back. So like I don't know what makes a good TikTok video, right? But I know what it kind of foundationally needs to be like. So I then can research and like, okay, how do you improve, average view rate of a TikTok video? Okay, well, you need to do this, this, and this. That's like being a specialist and going, okay, well, if you don't know what average view rate is and why it's important, then how do you go from going, okay, well, I've done this course and I've got given this video to use in my Facebook ads. Oh, it's not working. What do? I can't do anything,
Yeah.
I don't know the foundation. So yeah, I think as far as a hierarchy of things to learn enough about the foundation so that you can be outcome based when you sell. Then once you're in there and you have an account, and then I would bare my neck a little bit in the sales process and go like, look, I don't have a huge portfolio, blah, blah, we spoke about that. Once you get them, then start to learn the specifics about how you're going to get from the foundation knowledge and just having a general broad knowledge of the topic to, okay, what do I need to do to get specific results?
Yeah, it reminds me of a funny Facebook post I saw, and it was like some guy got back at some chick in his uni class by she was doing a uni assignment. He found out what she was doing the assignment on and spent 4 days researching it. And then when the questions portion of the assignment came up, he asked her so many questions that she cried because she couldn't answer any of them. And it just made me laugh. Like, I never want to be that guy. I never want to be the person where they ask me a question, I'm like, I never want to be in that position. Yeah. It's so important to just learn the base.
Yeah, it is. And trust me when I say that if you do that, if you learn the foundations first and then go to market, you don't have to learn that much about the foundations either. But like, let's say you learned them, you'll be like further ahead than like 95% of the social media marketing agencies out there, regardless of the niche. Because, I see it in Charlie's course a lot where there'll be people in there going, oh, the script's not working, what do I do? And Charlie's like, well, did you change it in any way? No, I just ran with it. It's like, it's not designed to do that. It's like, so the script that Charlie has for the outreach, mine is completely different. It's the same flavor, it's the same feel, but it's completely different. It's in the way it's worded.
Yeah.
Because it's like, actually, I know the foundations of my industry, I know the foundations of the space, I know the kind of offer I want to offer, I know how to build these offers out. Okay, well, I'm just going to take a punt based on my, backing myself and go, I'm going to change this and see how it works.
Like there was a line in the script that he said was like, I don't leave your credit card in the freezer. I'm not even going to think. And I like in the funeral industry, I can be like, leave your credit card in the mortuary, or whatever. Yeah. Like little things like that. Like that's gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. He talks about the evolution of this stuff a lot, and I think it's always been my competitive advantage, man. And I can only speak to my experience, but I can walk into a room with a whole bunch of other people that do Google Ads, even though I don't have that much experience as a lot of them do. But I can tell you what, I have a lot better understanding than a lot of people that do Google Ads. And that's how we get so much referral work, is because, you know, we're working with a company and they're like, oh, go talk to Jimmy, he knows what he's talking about. When people say that guy knows what he's talking about, or he's a subject matter expert, that's what they're talking about. Is like, you can dynamically change your thought process based on your fundamental understanding of something, and go, oh, actually, in our specific circumstances, I don't think Facebook ads will work based on my fundamental understanding of how Facebook ads work. But Google Ads will, because of X, Y, and Z. If you go to a client and say that, how are they not going to give you money? It just, because like 1% of people will do that. They go, oh yeah, Facebook ads will work. But they're only saying that because it's worked. They don't have a good enough understanding. Go, actually, if we're honest, it's not going to. And the funny thing is, the more honest I've been about that, and the more honest and the more aggressive I've been about sticking to my guns about things, the higher retainers we've had, and the more clients I've picked up. Yeah. When I've like called people out, and I would never recommend you disparage someone else's work. So if you get into a Facebook ads campaign that's not set up, you don't go, oh, they did a shit job. You'd be like, oh, look, I would have done this differently, and I would have set this up. It's never smart to shit on other people, because it will come back full circle. But when you go to some of these clients and you go, look, I think it's actually, so they'll say something and you're like, oh, look, it's not, this is the reason it works, or this is why it doesn't work. Regardless of their opinion of it, it's like, these are the facts, because I have a very good understanding of how it works. And, you know, if you need this many leads, Google Ads isn't by itself is not going to do that. And you call their bluff and you say that and go, well, like, we need to do. So like, I started off doing just SEO, and then it was like, actually, I need something in the middle, because the clients, 18 months of paying out money consistently is a lot. So I was like, I need to learn Google Ads. And now I go, look, I'm not going to work with you unless we can do both Google Ads and SEO at the same time. Yeah. Here is the reason. Oh yeah, but it's a lot. I was like, well, that's cool. You know, there's other agencies that will do those things individually, but this is what we do, and we know it works. So do you want to work with someone that is confident that it's going to work, or do you want to take a punt on someone that's cheaper?
It's beautiful to be in a position where, like, you don't have to be picky on your clients. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
it is. You get to be picky with your clients. Like, yes. At the beginning, it's, you don't want to do that. Okay, well, guess I'm learning this skill then. But
and that's the school of hard knocks. When you say like baptism of fire and school of hard knocks, that any agency owner that's actually done it has been through that. Because you do. Yeah, it's easy for me to say that from this ivory tower and going, yeah, you know, I'm the best at all this stuff, you know, piss off, because I don't want to do, you know, your face is weird, I'm not working with you sort of thing. It's easy to say that in theory, in the position I'm in, but you're right. Like, it's when you're like going, okay, well, how am I going to pay bills? It's like, yeah, actually you have to make exceptions, but I think you can still hold to your convictions with that. And I suppose what I was getting at is that, like, the more I held to my actual genuine convictions, I did a video, and it's in the lives, but about not drinking the salt water, you know. And
yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. You know, just for those who haven't watched it, what I mean by that is, you know, when you're a new agency and you're sitting in the boat and you've like pushed off the shore and you're just like floating along with your paddles and stuff, you know, and you run out of water, a lot of people will resort to just drinking the salt water because it gives them a short-term boost, but long-term it's going to kill them off. So they'll take on a client that they know full well why that they can't fulfill, or it's way out of their scope and stuff, because they're desperate. And like, that's a natural reaction to that. And all I bring up a specific example around this website we didn't do, and it's fundamentally changed our agency and stuff. But you kind of just sometimes just have to pray for rain, and you know, go, I'm not going to drink the poison chalice because I get a station right now. I'm better off praying for rain and hoping I survive it than get 100% chance of killing myself off as an agency.
It's scary to use the analogy though of like, you have to pray for success, because if you work hard enough, success will come in time.
Yes.
Like it isn't up to chance, but yeah, sticking with your guns, like delayed gratification is just the simple way to describe it.
Dude, it's the biggest killer of agencies. They'll go, I'm going to, yeah, I can get you 100 leads a month, or I can take on this campaign, and knowing full well they're not equipped to do it, or they don't have the resources, or they're just not, that's not what they do, and it's like, then next thing they get sued, or something happens, and it kills them off, or it gets too hard, and they're just like, I burn out, I'm done. It's you can mitigate a lot of the risk of that praying for rain by having good lead generation, so that the rain comes more often. But you'll get presented with this opportunity where it's like, oh, we haven't had many leads this month, or I haven't picked up any work this month. Oh, this guy wants a TikTok ads or something that you don't do, and you're like, actually, I'm gonna do that. Or this guy wants unrealistic expectations, like, oh no, I'll work it out, even though he wants 500 leads a month, and you're like, I don't think that's even possible, but I'm gonna take it anyway because I need the work. Sometimes you just got to go, actually, I will wait for a better opportunity than something I know full well will bite me in the ass, because you can't lie and talk your way out of absolutely everything. So you can't just, someone with that kind of higher expectations of, like, let's say it's 500 leads a month, and full well, like, there's not even that many clients in the space or something like that. You have, like, good knowledge that it's not going to work. At what point does the stress build up to a point where it's like, I've got to talk to him, or he's constantly harassing me about it, and I know I'm just ducking and dodging him? It's like, you don't want to run a business like that. It's just way too stressful. And
for to push back on this, but my own personal belief is, if you want to start something like this, where it is all about delayed gratification, and because a lot of the view is like, oh, I'm making this much an hour, but at the beginning you make nothing. So it's important to have an initial amount in your bank account that you've worked on previously, so that it doesn't breed like panic. Like, if you start a social media marketing agency with 0 in the bank account, you're going to panic and you're going to crash and burn. So it is important. Like, if you're thinking about getting into the space and you've got nothing in your bank account, think about your niche. If you've settled on a niche, go pick up a job in that area if you can. If you're a dentist, like, you're not going to go to medical school, but be a receptionist for a dentist or something. Pick up that day job, get some cash flow in, and so you've got some amount to sit on, and 100%. You're not going to crash and burn.
Dude, it's such a good point. And I've said this. There is nothing stopping someone starting an agency with $0, right? Like, theoretically, like, as one of the key advantages of an SMMA or an agency is that there's low cost to start. It's a hell of a lot easier to start with money, though.
Yeah.
I started this. I'm very transparent about this. I think I've said in the video. When I first started this agency, I put about $60,000 into it of my own money. Now, I had that money, so, like, it made it easier to do. But the 60 grand came in the fact that I was, like I said, I wasn't drinking the salt water. I was like, I wanted to make sure we picked the right clients, got the branding right, got the narrative right, was able to get the equipment to do the lives and streams and things like that. Now, if you take the dollar figure out of it, even if you had 5 grand, it's a lot easier to start an agency with 5 grand than it is to start with 0. Or it's a lot easier to start an agency with $1,000 than it is to start with 0. Because it's stuff like this. It's like, you need to do, like, content, produce content. It's a good way to get business. But I can't afford a microphone. So, I'm just going to not have one, sort of thing. It's like a lot easier to go, well, actually, this will get me a better outcome if I buy the microphone. But yeah, I think I always frame that 60 grand as well, because it's a lot of money. Like, I'm not.
Where did that go into? 60K.
Because I had the office from the start. The office was $1,000 a month. All the resources. I had a team from day one. I hired people from pretty much day one to help so I could scale quick. The equipment, like computers. A lot of it went into just, like, tooling up to be able to do it. Subscriptions. With SEO, you need, like, some of the subscriptions are like $500 a month.
But when you say day one, you don't mean, like, the first day you started learning about SMMA?
No, that was 60 grand. I should qualify. I spent 60 grand till I was profitable.
Okay.
So that was over, like, a 6-month period. It wasn't like 60 grand to start the agency. I probably spent like 4 or 5 grand a month, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I did a lot of things. I started this agency from day one as a 7-figure agency. I designed all the infrastructure, everything to support that kind of growth. So yeah, no, it was 60 grand till I was profitable and making a profit. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up, because it's a big distinction.
Yeah.
It was like 4 or 5 grand a month, or something like 6 grand a month. 1 month it was 10, but it was mainly 4 or 5 grand a month because it was salaries and subscriptions and stuff. But I still would say this to people, like, even at 60 grand to get started, it's a hell of a lot. You know, that's 60 grand to get profitable. That's spending 60 grand and then getting to the point where I'm starting to pay that 60 grand back. You can start a plumbing business and spend 200 grand on equipment and not generate a single cent in revenue, let alone profit. You know, that's 60 grand. I generated 150 grand of revenue with that. So it's like, it's easy to throw that number around without the context, but you can start. I think just having not being, you know, and that was the other thing too, right? Like, this was what I did. So like, I was still paying myself. We were still, like, that 60 grand was in lieu of me getting a second job. But if I didn't have let's say I didn't have the money, right? Like, I didn't have the 5 grand a month to do it the way I would have done it, I would have 100% had another job. I probably would have been working at a petrol station or something, working at night or night fuel or driving Ubers or something like that. I would have 100% had something else supporting the growth, because you run into this problem where you can't just take the worst thing you can do, right, when you start, is take that money out of the business that you get. So let's say you get a $2,000 retainer, like it's $100 a lead, and they pay you $2,000 up front for lead generation with social media. A lot of people go, "Oh, you beauty, $2 grand, I'm just put that straight in my pocket." It's the worst thing you can do as a business, is like going, "I'm just going to use this as my personal slush fund to fund my lifestyle." The best business people and the real businesses go, "I'm going to pour that $2 grand straight back into this business and get a return on that investment."
Mr. Beast, so much money. Like, he put 6 million in that Squid Game video. He didn't even make a profit on that video.
But I'm sure he's made a profit now on it.
Oh, yeah. But that's what he said. He said every single dollar he made, he put straight back into the business. It's like pretty inspiring. He talks about like his first ever thing that someone wanted to sponsor him for 5K. He's like,
get the 10,
double it, and I'll give it to a homeless person. They'll blow up. And all the money he made from that, straight into more money. Yep. 70 grand to Ninja, makes like 200K from it. Straight back into giving 200 grand to small streamers. Like,
and this is, and you're right. Like, he treated it as a business from the very start, which makes a big difference.
It's so smart.
And this is where you have, you know, and I see this. It's a bit of a waste, actually. I see this a lot. So you have a huge competitive advantage over someone like myself. Yes, I've got age. I've got probably a little bit more authority because I am older, which helps when you sell. And the medals in the background as well. I saw you. Yeah, medals. I saw your video about that. This is all by design, like I was saying in the video, right? But what you have is low overheads. So I have wife, kids, mortgage, for all that, right? So what I have to do to make the money to do that is a lot different to what you need to make, even if you were living by yourself, right? And living, let's say you don't have kids, you don't have a wife, you know, you could probably get away with eating noodles, you know, if you really got desperate. I have a flaw. I have a specific flaw that I need to make. You can pour so much more money into your business than I can pour into mine. I have zero living costs. Like, my dad's in the other room watching Lord of the Rings. I don't pay for groceries. I'm only just 18. I'm not paying rent yet. Like, I've got that luxury. So that would be my biggest bit of advice: is treat it like Mr. Beast does, and like go, I am happy to eat, you know, mooch off mum and dad, and to get this off the ground. I'm not going to go take that first $2 grand and go and buy a PS5 with it or something like that. You know, because that's probably the thing that pisses me off the most about when I listen to these TikToks. They make it out like, I make $2 grand, I'm going to put that $2 grand in my pocket. That 100% profit margin bullshit. It's like, no, and that's why they will fail, because they're not treating it like a real business. What happens if you have to refund a client and you've gone and spent $2 grand, the $2 grand that you done with them? You know, you can kill your agency off from the very start. The amount of money I've had to refund over the years because I've missed the mark, probably 15, 20 grand over the last 3 years of like, okay, well, they're not a right fit for us, or we didn't get results. And I feel, but what happens when you do that is you build goodwill, you don't burn any bridges. And because we invest so much money back into the business, it's like, yeah, we can comfortably give that client back his 2 grand because we don't want to work with him. And I haven't gone and bought a $200,000 car, and I needed that money to live. And I think if you use that as your advantage, in the fact, Charlie's the same. Charlie's a very smart dude, because you listen to him talk about that, and he keeps his costs real low. And he said the biggest mistake he made is not investing more back into the business, because they have huge profit margins, and they were just keeping it. But he said he should have invested more into building the sales team earlier and the content earlier and things like that.
So something that I posted on the Imperium, Charlie's agency, for anyone who doesn't know, on the Imperium agency Facebook. I was like, is there a list of every application and cost that you use as an agency owner? Because I was thinking about it. It's like, I have no idea what to... I'm sitting on money I made while playing video games, but yes. I don't actually know what to put any of my money into. I've got no idea. And that's one of the things I need to educate myself on, is like, I don't know a single service that I need, not one. I don't know a single what I should be paying people to do. I just don't know where to put my money.
Dude, that's a really good point. And you want to know why there's not much information on that? It's because people don't spend enough on their clients. So like, they don't want information out there that like, oh, we're keeping 80% of the money that a client gives us. I don't necessarily think that way. I think it's I think I'm happy to share that info, even if it's broad, as in like, okay, well, to run an agency, you got to think of this cost, you got to think of this. These are, these are reporting tools, anywhere between $50 and $100 a month, and that cost is just, let's do that. I think we jump on another call. Let me think about, I'll put some pen to paper, and I'll actually, I'll make a video, and we can follow it up if you like, and we can jump on a call, and I can run you through some of the costs that you encounter. I actually think that would be a really good video now that you mention it, because you're right. Like, even when I started, I had a lot of business acumen, so I kind of knew going in where some of the costs would be. But I think if I didn't have the business acumen, I'd be going in and going, wait a minute, like what, do I need, little subtle things like internet connection, right? Like if you've got an office, you need an internet connection. Okay, well, that's $50 to $100 a month. Or, okay, with the Google ads or Facebook ads, okay, you would need some kind of reporting tool. Okay, well, Data Studio is free, but like if you want something that's a little bit more professional, it's going to cost you $20 to $50 a month. Or, I would allocate $50 a month for this, or $20 a month for this, or $100 a month for this, registration, licenses, things like that. I think that's a really good insurance. That's another thing people don't realize, is that any of these agencies that are running without public liability insurance, they're dumb, because all it takes is someone to sue you and you're stuffed. And it's not expensive, but it can mean the difference between you spending the next 25 years paying someone a settlement, or because it's little things that kind of stuff you don't realize is where the money, these little overheads come from. Public liability insurance might be $60 a month, $70 a month for you, but the amount of cover it provides you, and it's like, it's not necessarily the cost that puts people off. A lot of people just don't realize they need it until they've where it comes from, right, is like, let's say you're working on someone's website and someone hacks your computer and they get in and a direct cause of someone losing financial gain is caused by you. So like, let's say you're working with me and you have a contract and we sign it, and you lose me 50 grand because the website went down because of the work you're doing. You could get sued for that.
Yeah.
Because there's a tangible loss.
You don't know what you don't know until you need to know it, and then you're fucked.
Yeah, and I think that would be a really good video, just covering off some of those like unexpected costs of running a legitimate agency, not just a backyard job, but like, okay, you're doing 10 grand a month, you should have this.
Yeah,
and you're doing 50k a month, you should have this.
It's gonna do pretty decently, I think, because list depends how you frame it. If you frame it like these are the top 5 things every agency needs, like list videos do amazing on YouTube, and on TikTok. So like, if you've got top 5 things at a small starting agency, like a 10K a month agency, like 10 things you need to scale, like split those all up. It's gonna do wonders.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll add that to my list, man. But yeah, if there's any. So I'll end the call here. It's been a long call, but if there's anything specifically you think of in the meantime you want to ask, just ping me. But yeah, hopefully, I don't know if that helped clarify anything.
No, for sure. I'll be rewatching this like 2-3 times, just like taking notes on everything. I didn't want to like type because my keyboard's right next to my mic, but this has been good. Thanks, man. I'd love to like work on like pseudo work under you. Good mentor, dude.
Yeah, look, if anyone's willing to, I've said this to another gentleman I'm helping hold accountable. The big thing, if you talk to anyone about mentoring, especially, it's like, how do you find mentors and things like that? That's one thing in itself. But the worst thing you can do is like when someone takes the time to offer advice, not action it. That's the easiest way to get someone not to help you anymore, is like not action it. And I said this to this other person. I was like, look, I'm happy to keep you accountable, man, but the day you don't hold yourself accountable to it is the day I'm going to stop, because what's the value I get out of it if the value I'm getting is helping someone else and they don't actually want to take the help, it loses the value proposition for me to take the time out of my day to do it. So yeah, man, like just keep us in the loop about where you're at. I think the thing you need to do, over the next couple of days is set a line in the sand when you start hitting the ground and hitting the pavement on getting clients. Even if it's 2 weeks from now, a month from now, or the start of next year, you need to have a definitive line in the sand and work back from that. Yeah. So if if it's January next year, okay, well, you can start to work out the things you need to get to before January next year. Without that, you may not ever start. Yeah, you may just end up spinning your wheels until you lose interest in going into the next thing.
I've got about like 15 more hours of YouTube stuff just saved, like ready to watch and take notes on. And I'm gonna take that stuff, I'm gonna sort it, and then I'm gonna actually, like, I've got notes on scripts, like script examples. I'm gonna write up my script, and I think that's gonna be my next step. It's gonna be take the content and then flesh out all my scripts for emails, looms, cold calls. I think that's my next step. And at the same time, so this is a little separate tangent, but I was struggling with making the choice on, do I want to pick up this job at the funeral place? Because those working hours where you would make a call to a business when they're open, you can't do that if you're working during those hours. And so I was thinking about it, I was like, how am I supposed to cold call businesses if I'm working when I'm meant to cold call?
Yeah. It's that's why I said very specifically I'd have a night job.
Yeah, exactly. Like I work with Domino's at the moment.
Yeah, it's a real thing. I think you've got to balance the opportunity cost, right? You said it's casual. Yeah. So the opportunity cost of you learning the industry and the space kind of outweighs the lack of being able to pick up the phone and call people. As long as it's not a full-time job. Yeah. Then I think you'll find the time. As long as you look at a 24-hour day or an 8-hour work day and you go, okay, well, if I'm not working at the funeral home, those other days, that time between this and this, when business is there, I'm only outreaching. Yeah. No like actual fulfillment. Those times, those valuable times I have is just cold calling or direct email outreach. And then the nights are for fulfillment.
And the line in the sand is important because, like, if I delay my outreach by a month, and I'm spending that month every single day I'm in the funeral home learning the industry, like that is a worth trade-off. Like I'm 18, I've got years and years and years. Delaying outreach by a month to learn an industry in depth is something that I can do. Especially, and again, it loops back to I'm getting money, so I'm not in a panic mode. I've got time. And that's important for any SMMA, someone who wants to start SMMA, is you have time. Like, spend 100%. Time fleshing things out.
Did you ever heard the story of Warren Buffett and how he got to how wealthy he is? No. So Warren Buffett, you may or may not know him, but he's worth $100 billion, $150 billion, Berkshire Hathaway.
He's the guy who works with Charlie Munger, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's Charlie Munger's business partner.
Yeah.
But Warren Buffett hired Charlie Munger. So, like, Warren Buffett is
he's the top dog.
Hathaway. Yep. Yeah. Charlie Munger is his COO. So he started with $150,000 in the 50s or 60s. From 1950 to like the 1980s, he turned that 150 into a couple of $1 million, $14 million or something like that. He then turned that from the 70s or whatever it was to the 90s. It went from 14 million to 140 million. From the 90s to the 2000s, it went from 140 million to 1.5 billion or something like that. And then it went from like 90 to 95, it went to 3 billion. It went to 10 billion. It went to 50 billion, and then it went to 105 billion. So the multiple decreased as he went, because the most growth happens at the start. But but what I'm getting at is like time. People don't appreciate that time. Yeah, you're right. Like there should be a sense of urgency to this, but you also have time. It's not like you have to make as much money as you can in the next 6 months, or you're falling off the edge of a cliff. Most businesses, I've been at this now for several years, and it's like I've only come into my full stride in the last like 2 years. I floundered around for a year or two, getting my head around how it all worked, and then progressing there. People don't realize that a lot of the people they see on YouTube, especially, they're seeing the end result of several years of work, and they think that I'm going to get this in 6 months. You could work the hardest you possibly can. You won't be doing 7 figures in 6 months. Yeah, it's just not. It's like those multiple things, right? Like
unless you're Charlie, he somehow did that.
Yeah, but yeah, even Charlie, like you got to think, his agency before he met Bo, he wasn't making that much.
Yeah.
Then the agency itself, that the agency they have together, North, the fitness one, that took years to make that kind of money, and then the course makes good money. But yes, it's. I wouldn't be too like people go, oh, I need to learn all this. It's like, actually, just take your time, man. Like, it's better to move slower and make less mistakes, because the mistakes cost you money. So it's better to like move a little slower and go, yeah, actually, I'm going to do this job as well, because it as far as a long play and going in the long haul, it makes more sense to have cash flow coming in. So I'm not as desperate, because desperate is short-term thinking. Having cash and doing this and sacrificing a little learning time and outreach time will make me less desperate, which is a long-term play.
Yeah.
And everything I've done up until this point has been like the 60 grand at the start. It's like, I'm setting this up as a long-term thing, not short-term thinking, not just trying to make the most money at the very start. It's like, I'll make the money. I know enough about business, about how it works, and going like, if I invest this, I'll get a return. And a lot of people that start these things go, I just want to make the most amount of money as quick as possible, and then just flee the space. So there's a way of doing that, and it's called churning and burning through people. And that's a perfectly valid business model if you only want to be doing it for 6 months, because people don't realize that, yeah, it's all good and well burning people, but the stress involved with that basically pushes you out of the space. But if you want to create something that, you're so like I've talked about this in videos where it's like this is the hardest I've ever worked in my life, but I've never enjoyed doing something more. Yeah, I like, it's genuine. Like I work harder than I've ever worked, but I roll up. I'm like super keen to get out of bed and get in here. And the only reason it's because it's a long-term play for me. I'm not sitting here stressing about, I'm burning this client and stuff. It's like, no, I'm thinking of the long term. I'm building the client base and building the portfolio. It's just a long-term play for me. And if you treat it like that, you'll get a lot more satisfaction out of the whole thing. And whether you do it for 10 years is irrelevant. It's like, if you treat it as a long-term thing, you'll just get more satisfaction out of doing it too. And the only way you can do it without getting super desperate is having some kind of money coming in. Because once you start having the money going out, it tests your mettle on how much stamina you have to like money leaving without money coming in. So
yeah,
you close that gap by having a job and learning a bit more about the space.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome, man.
Sounds good, Jimmy. Thanks for having me, mate.
No, thank you so much. It's nice to reflect on some of the things I forgot. It's as bad as it sounds. I forgot I was offering guarantees at the start. I really should change my narrative on guarantees, because I did offer a guarantee. I just forgot I did it because I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But, it's like you said, I think I've got to be conscious of that in the future, that it's easy for me to say with conviction that you should be doing this, but I'm also at the end result. So it's easy to go, you can turn clients away, because I can say that with conviction because that's what I do. But is that the right thing for you to do right now?
You can turn clients away. I'm not there yet. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people that aren't there yet, and it's probably not good advice for someone that's just starting out. Yeah.
But I think if you keep it in the back of your mind that as a long-term play, I don't want to be drinking too much salt water because it will eventually kill me. That's like a good way to get to that point where you can go, fuck off, I don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
Which is where we're at now. So, dude, thanks so much.
Good if
anyone wants to jump on, I'm just going to finish here quickly. If anyone wants to jump on and do a call like this with me, as you can tell, I do enjoy them because I learn a lot. I hear some new perspectives. Matt clearly got a lot out of it, hopefully.
I'm cooked, man. My brain's fried.
Oh, yeah, that's a good sign, right? Because it means some of it's gone in there. But yeah, jump on a call with me. Just leave your rough question in the comments. We'll unpack it a bit and see if we can't help you. But thanks for everyone that's tuned in and gotten this far. And I'll see you all next week.